Ogun State Governor meets with President Buhari 2 days after his suspension by the National Working Committee of the APC.
What you are asking for on the suspension, my comment will be no comment.
Ahead of the governorship and state houses of assembly elections, APC stakeholders meet to strategize.
Ministry of Science and Tech creates incentives to attract female students into science disciplines.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall examine the prospective shape and character of the 9th National Assembly.
After what looked like an initial setback, the presidential and National Assembly elections finally held on the 23rd of February, and INEC has since announced the results of both elections.
Yes, Kingsley, while President Muhammadu Buhari has been re-elected for another term of 4 years, other candidates have also been elected in the National Assembly, some returning and others for the first time.
And while some of the results of the National Assembly elections are yet to be declared on account of the elections being inconclusive with respect to those polls, now the current results show that the All Progressives Congress has at least 64 seats in the Senate, while the opposition People's Democratic Party has at least 40 seats. Now, the Young Progressives Party, YPP, has 1 seat.
And in the House of Representatives, the APC, by the results released so far, has over 200 seats, while the PDP has over 100. Now, from these results, some serving National Assembly members are not returning, while new ones are warming up to come to either the red or the green chamber.
And talking about those who are in or out, the numbers so far indicate that some 64 senators failed in their bid to return to the Senate, while some 150 members of the House of Reps were denied another term in the House, which is lower in the National Assembly. Yes.
And now, if you compare with 2015, where 79 senators failed to return and 229 members lost their seats in the House of Representatives, one might say that there is some improvement on the legislative turnover.
That's right, Kirian, but some analysts believe that this is still high. In other words, given the fact that it will still be a learning curve for nearly half of those who are coming in, and that before they settle down for legislative business, some ground would have been lost. Nevertheless, Nigerians are looking forward to a vibrant legislature in the 9th Assembly, which of course comes on stream later on in June this year.
You can say that again, Kingsley, especially when you consider that in the Senate alone, there are about 16 serving or former governors ready to take their seats in the red chambers, while many big names will be absent owing to their failure to be re-elected.
But what does all of that say about the shape and character of the forthcoming 9th National Assembly? What should Nigerians expect in terms of the quality and speed of legislation and oversight? And what kind of relationship will the National Assembly cultivate this time with other arms of government? Are we likely to see some of the acrimony that was recorded in the past?
Well, tough questions there, Kingsley, and that is why we have assembled those with the knowledge in this area to give us an insight. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria for today. I am Kirian Umayo. Thank you for finding time to wake up with us this morning.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join my colleague here and also welcoming you to this program, which, as always, is broadcast live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. It's Africa's largest television network, and we're right here at our Abuja headquarters studios. As always, the complimentary part of the program shall be brought to you, where these include newspaper review, business, sports, foreign, and others. The morning news is right now with Nolene Ebelame. Good morning, Nolene.
Good morning, Kingsley. Good morning, Kirian. And good morning, Nigeria. Here's the early morning news. President Muhammadu Buhari yesterday granted audience to the governor of Ogun State, Ibikunle Amosun. Details of their discussions held behind closed doors were not made public. The meeting is taking place barely 2 days after the governor's suspension by the National Working Committee of the APC for alleged anti-party activities.
Same as always. Well, we are all happy. We are in this happy mood because he has just won another term of 4 years, where he will continue to serve the good people of Nigeria. So that's why I'm here.
President Muhammadu Buhari has reassured Nigerians that the APC-led administration will continue to work with people of proven integrity in its quest for taking Nigeria to another level. The president stated this at a dinner organized by the 2019 Women and Youth Presidential Campaign Team chaired by the wife of the president in appreciation of their role in the re-election of President Muhammadu Buhari.
I assure you that I will not disappoint you. Our objectives are the same. We are to build this country so that your generation, the younger ones now, and the future generations will have a country that they can be proud of.
The All Progressives Congress in Nasarawa State convened a high-profile stakeholders meeting to review strategies ahead of the governorship and peaceful outing of presidential and National Assembly polls in the state. The party says it is confident of strengthening its door-to-door interaction with the electorate to win votes.
My target in this election is not repeating the feat, but doing something much more, doubling or tripling what we did in the last election. And I can assure you, we have all that it takes to ensure that we sway the polls by electing a governor of our own, and in fact, all the 24 members of the State House of Assembly.
Meanwhile, the 19 northern states and the FCT chapter of the Christian Association of Nigeria (CAN) have congratulated President Muhammadu Buhari over his re-election for another 4 years in office. In a statement signed by its chairman, Reverend Yakubu Pam, the association describes the president's victory as a testament of uprightness and transparency in piloting the affairs of the nation. The body, however, appeals to the President, Muhammadu Buhari, to continue to be a father to all, irrespective of their religious belief. As part of efforts towards making Nigeria innovation-driven, the Ministry of Science and Technology is engaging the Organization for Women in Science for the Developing World to come up with a template that will encourage female students to go into science. The Minister of Science and Technology, Dr. Obonaya Onu, signed the Memorandum of Understanding with a 1 million naira takeoff grant.
Nigeria, to realize that bright future, we need to make sure that we embrace science, technology, and innovation.
That's the news for this time. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Kingsley and Kieran after this break. Thank you.
Mars Medical Mission, MMM, is offering free services on a wide range of medical issues. Take advantage of these offers, especially by availing yourself of the National Cancer Prevention Program, NCPP. You can do so by coming for our Wellness Wednesday program at 31 Bode Thomas Street, Surulere, Lagos, every Wednesday from 7 a.m. You also have the opportunity of seeing the specialist and getting expert opinion on any health issues that may have been bothering you. Are you preparing to get married to your sweetheart? Then we have a pre-marital health program that will help you ensure that you start your married life on a healthy footing. Very important health screening and counseling will be made available for you and your partner. You can avail yourself of this opportunity by attending our pre-wedding Wednesday program from 7 a.m. For inquiries, send a mail to info@pinkcruise.org or log on to www.pinkcruise.org or call 0805-633-4288. Mission Pink Cruise, taking wellness to all.
The Aerial Assurance Challenge. But what assurance can you give our daughter?
Everything. With the new look Ariel, I can even do the laundry.
Prove it then.
Okay. Let's make this stain even tougher. Now, let's wash the cloth with your detergent and with new look Ariel. Do you believe me now?
Ariel, now in a new look pack.
Hold it! Me, I don't comot my hand from oil bunkering.
General, what you gonna yarn? What did the yarn serve? I don't understand though.
Because they spoil our water and our environment. And they cause our people serious harm. Militants is there. You know good. Me, I not do again Sam. Because why? Change begins with me.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
And you're watching Good Morning Nigeria. Now let's turn to business. Federal government set to partner Afrexim Bank in providing conducive environment for economic growth. Chimaobi Watanaji is our guide on business news.
In furtherance of its vision to make Nigeria a home for the growth of medical practice and stop the cases of medical tourism in the country, the federal government has earmarked 5 hectares of land to the Africa Export-Import Bank for the development of a center of excellence in tertiary health care.
We believe that that project, when completed, will help in making Abuja a medical tourism hub. Afrexim Bank is also developing a testing and inspection and certification center in Ogun State. That will help support the program to diversify exports to non-traditional agro-based exports and other manufactured exports.
Meanwhile, total turnover of 1.752 billion shares worth 19.681 billion naira in 22,319 deals were traded this week by investors on the floor of the exchange, in contrast to a total of 1.481 billion shares valued at 17.647 billion naira that exchanged hands last week in 20,449 deals. The financial services industry led the activity chart with 1.377 billion shares, valued at 11.311 billion, traded in 14,180 deals, thus contributing 78.63% and 57.47% to the total equity turnover volume and value respectively. Trading in the top 3 equities, Diamond, Access and Zenith Bank PLC accounted for 594.377 million shares worth 4.757 billion naira in 4,315 deals, contributing 33.93% and 24.17% to the total equity turnover volume and value respectively. And that's business news. I'm Chimaobi Watanaji.
Thank you very much, Chimaobi Watanaji, for the business package. Just a review is next on Good Morning Nigeria.
Let's welcome Bayo Atoyebi, our newspaper reviewer. Bayo, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Kyria. Good morning, Kinsley. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, Bayo, good to see you. I hope you had a restful weekend.
Yes, very restful indeed. Thank you.
Good. Okay, let's begin by taking a look at the front page of the Punch newspaper. Pretty busy, even though we'll have a photograph that is also taking nearly half of the front page. Lead story for the Punch newspaper says, PDP National Caucus holds emergency meeting over presidential poll today. And Senate will probe February 16 poll delay. That's according to Senator Gaya. Details of the story can be found on page 2. Now, 2 earpieces beside the nameplate. Sultan hails Buhari's re-election, urges Atiku to accept defeat. That's page 7. Also on page 7, federal government clamping down on us. CUPP cries out. Above the nameplate, you have 4 headlines. PENCOM allows sick workers to withdraw from pension savings. Details can be found on page 31. Suspected herdsmen kill 16 in fresh Benue attack. And Nigeria's oil exports drop as ITO shuts pipeline. Only persons with integrity will make my next cabinet. That's according to President Buhari. And then below the photograph on the front page from Abuja, we see 3 other headlines. Will resist attempts to militarize Benue during elections. That's according to Governor Tom, page 10. And car owner claims Uber driver jumped into lagoon. Family kicks, pages 4 and 5. Most new senators may not chair committees in 9th Senate. That's on page 42. Kirian.
All right, now let's turn to the Daily Sun newspaper for today. Just beside the nameplate, we have 23 killed in fresh Benue Kaduna attacks. It's on pages 4 and 5. And below the nameplate, a Senate president from the Southeast. That's a front page editorial for the Sun newspaper. You can read that up on page 15 of the Daily Sun. And now the lead story here this morning on Daily Sun. Buhari gives insight into new cabinet with a writer hinges appointment on integrity and others. It's on page 6. Now, the photograph you could see there is in Festac, Lagos, after the downpour of yesterday. A vehicle and a motorcyclist wading through the flooded road in Festac, Lagos, after a downpour. Well, if a flood can begin now, one wonders what happens when we get to the middle of the rainy season. Now, below that photograph, we have Northeast lobbies for House of Reps Speaker on page 6. Judge faces NJC probe over Zamfara elections. Page 4 and 5 is where you get that story. Now, presidential amnesty. EFCC secures final forfeiture of 732.85 million naira to the federal government. It's on page 5. And now, the last line on the Daily Sun front page, residents flee as oil pipeline explodes in Bayelsa on page 47. Let's bring in Bayo now.
Thank you, Kirian. Well, the president-elect has indicated that the next cabinet will be composed of only persons with integrity. The president-elect indicated so at a dinner organized by his wife, Aisha Muhammad Buhari, to thank the women and youth that compose the presidential campaign team. She said, I wish I can invite all the 15 million that voted for Mr. President. She said her husband's second term will serve in addressing the huge gap between the rich and the poor in Nigeria. There was a presentation by Mrs. Dolapo Oshibajo, who also gave a goodwill message. The president-elect said the abuse of office of the past administration caused in taking a lot of long time for him to reposition the country. He, however, promised to embark on programs and projects that will have been started. He indicated that there will be an increase in the role for youth and women, but also pleaded for some of his own generation. There were goodwill messages from particularly the leader of the youth team, former military governor of Lagos State, Brigadier General Buba Marwa. Meanwhile, former military president, General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, has urged Alhaji Atiku Abubakar to close ranks and work with the winner of the election so that democracy will continue to thrive in Nigeria. He also enjoined President-elect to heal the wounds of the heated campaigns by embracing other contestants. The former military president said the president must resist the temptation to see them as enemies, not even opponents, but fellow compatriots who merely disagreed on how best to move our country forward. He urged the president to dedicate in tackling the major ills, especially insecurity, insurgency, and the twin evil of kidnapping and armed robbery, while calling attention for creative policies to improve the economy and youth unemployment. He enjoyed the heeding of the yearning for constitutional restructuring, for power and devolution. Meanwhile, the People's Democratic Party's presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar has announced his rejection of the presidential election results and has inaugurated a legal team. The team is headed by Dr. Liviu Uzoaku, the senior advocate of Nigeria, and is to challenge the election of the February 23rd election at the court. In another development, the People's Democratic Party has declared that it was not ready for any form of negotiation. Spokesman Ologodia says no amount of contrivance, false report, harassment, and attack can alter the resolve of them to seek legal redress. Meanwhile, at the legislature, the ninth Senate, due for inauguration, will have 66 new senators, and 43 of them are in ranking status. It means they have been there before they won re-election. A breakdown shows that 42 lost primaries, and while during the election contest proper, 22 lost elections. So the distribution in the Senate, the ninth Senate, as at now, stands like APC 64 senators elect, PDP 41 senators elect, and YPP 1 senator elect. Meanwhile, while the APC has a simple majority, it is not likely to be able to attain the two-thirds majority, which will stand about 72. This makes the 106 senators. The three other results that are outstanding are one from Plateau, one from Kogi, and another one from Imo State. Ranking senators usually are the ones that contest for the position of Senate President and Deputy Senate President, as well as the 8 principal officers. The inauguration of the Senate is supposed to be sometime in June. It will follow the proclamation by the President of the dissolution of the 8th Senate while opening the 9th Senate. The Senate President and Deputy Senate President are nominated and voted for at plenary before senators are sworn in. The principal officers are usually nominated by the party caucuses. At the House of Representatives, in the House of Rep, 151 reps will not return. 209, however, were lucky they won the elections. In 2015, it was better. You had 229 winning elections. Daily Trust say that it put the distribution of the party along APC, 220 House of Rep elected members, while the PDP has 100. In 2015, the ratio was 213 to APC, 140 to PDP. So that is the picture.
All right, let's take a look at the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper. Daily Trust newspaper, below the nameplate, intrigues in states ahead of governorship polls. That's on page 14. And Nigeria records trade surplus of 1.44 trillion naira in Q4. That's the fourth quarter, apparently, of 2018. Details can be found on page 17. Now, late story says, 9th National Assembly, Dogara moves to retain Speaker's seat. Details are on the front page with a continuation on page 5. Below the photograph, on the front page there, you have 3 other headlines. Gunmen kill 2 soldiers in Rivers and 16 persons in Benue. And PDP holds caucus meeting today. No going back on UTME biometrics, JAMB says. That's on page 3.
Okay, let's go to the leadership newspaper before Bio comes in again. Leadership newspaper front page. Below the nameplate, we have hundreds flee as major pipeline explodes in Bielsa. We also had that story on Daily Sun. This has a rider. Nigeria loses $16 billion to non-review of production sharing contracts. Now, the lead headline, which of course, Kingsley read in other newspapers, only people of integrity will make my cabinet, says the president. It's on page 4 of the leadership newspaper. Now, he says, more youths, women will make it as cabinet members. My appointment may appoint new ministers and aides in June. Now, Nigeria's March 9 polls deeply important to the world, says the U.S. And besides the photograph from that On the daily leadership newspaper, we have no going back on UTME biometrics, says JAMB. It's on page 35. Amnesty fraud. Court orders final forfeiture of 732 million naira. And then Zamfara. We also read this in another newspaper. NJC probes judge over alleged judicial rascality. That's on page 2. Bayo.
Yes. Like Kingsley read earlier on, Speaker Yakubu Dogara has indicated that he wants to concentrate, and is not concerned now, about the speakership of the future. However, already there are speculations that there are many candidates who are angling for the position of the speaker. They include candidates from Niger, Plateau, Katsina, and Adamawa. The other lead candidates for the speakership are actually Lagos and Borno. Meanwhile, the preparations for Saturday's governorship election had led to a lot of horse trading and behind-the-scene moves. Already, President Muhammadu Buhari has indicated that he will be traveling to Delta and Taraba State to support the campaign initiatives. In Oyo State, there has been a lot of horse trading going on. A coalition is emerging between parties that are at the forefront. That is the All Progressive Congress and the People's Democratic Party. Those who are angling and constituting themselves into alliances are the All ADC, the SDP, ZLP, as well as the AD. Meanwhile, a senator-elect and the current deputy speaker of a legislator in the North Central State was paraded nude on the social media, and there were speculations that he was apprehended in a move to set up with flirting with another politician's wife. The police in Abuja say they are aware of this. They are investigating. The senator-elect is said to have returned to his home state.
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
Bayo,
yes.
There's the lead story that Kirian read from the front page of the leadership with regard to the president's disclosed major criterion for appointing members of his cabinet, yes, which is persons of integrity. I think it's useful to state this for the benefit of some of our viewers who might not know. Mr. President is unlikely to forward a list of cabinet nominees to the National Assembly until about June.
Until June, yes.
Until June, because
when the Senate is inaugurated.
Yes, that's unless, of course, he wants to deal with the outgoing Senate, which is unlikely because his tenure ends on the 28th and then takes the oath of office for a second term on the 29th. So unless he wants to deal with the
deal with the present
National Assembly. So unless, but he could. I mean,
of his progress.
He could because the Senate would stay up until about the 8th or so of June. So he could if he decides to. Alternatively, for the number of special advisors, he could send the request to the Senate to say, I would like to appoint such number without naming the personalities. That's one.
Kingsley said, may appoint new ministers. It's in June. Invariably,
yes,
if that happens in June, it means that he will have to deal with the incoming National Assembly.
It could be 1st of June.
No, I think what Kingsley is saying is this. The term of the ministers that were appointed will expire by May 29th. However, the Senate will continue until June 8th. That is when the President will make a proclamation to dissolve the 8th Senate and then advise that the 9th Senate be inaugurated. And that's why he's suggesting that by that time, in May, the President-elect will have been inaugurated. And he still has the opportunity to still work with the outgoing Senate before the new Senate is inaugurated.
So that we don't have the time, because we didn't have the last time, this current time, the ministerial list wasn't submitted.
Until November.
But there are appointments the President can make on the 29th of May.
Yes.
This is a very critical appointment that do not require the approval of the Senate. Secretary to the Government of the Federation, for instance, because the incumbent, his tenure will also end on the 28th. Yes. Chief of Staff, and then, of course,
from the
personal
experience
staff.
of 2015, when we didn't have ministers until about 6 months, perhaps it may not be the right thing to do, but circumstances brought that about. But in this present situation now, few days or weeks, will not be, too bad enough to wait and allow the incoming 9th Senate to deal with the ministers is going to send in. So if by 29 May, the appointments of ministers, elapses, then a few weeks it can be run without the ministers.
No, I don't. There's no problem with that. There's no problem with that. He has to get a system running, but it's just to say, look, your list should be ready. in good time, so that is dealt with, and then you move on with a new team.
Agreed, so that the administration can hit the ground running continuously. Yes.
All right, now let's turn to the editorial for this morning, and it's coming from the Punch newspaper. It's titled, Buhari needs to transform the civil service urgently. Now, President Muhammadu Buhari recently highlighted the deep flaws in the civil service, but typically it came short of opting for sweeping change. Instead, he basked in the middling reforms of his administration, such as payroll cleansing. He, like the head of state of service of the Federation, Winifred Oyo-Ita, however, missed the point. Nigeria is a dysfunctional, corrupt, and lumbering bureaucracy requiring radical surgery, not tokenism, to enable it to fulfill its role of driving implementation of public policies. Bye.
Well, before I go to the editorial, let me quickly draw attention to this human interest story. A victim of robbery incident identified one of the robbers at a motor park. She had actually boarded a vehicle comprising of 3 men. Unfortunately, she didn't know that it was a one-chance vehicle. She was robbed and pushed out of a moving vehicle. Another time, when she was about to travel, she spotted the robbers and called the attention of the police. The police came, arrested the 3 of them, searched the car, and they found a cutlass and a rope which they used in strangulating their victims. It happened in Ata Odo in Ogun State. Now the editorial. Well, the editorial is happening on the fact that one bad apple can spoil the whole basket. It's happened on a few individuals in the public service who have been behaving out of order, particularly those that have been investigated, and a lot of public property, either by way of funds or resources, have been retrieved from them by way of seizure of properties and huge sums of money. And the editorial is saying that the initiatives by the head of the civil service of the Federation by payroll cleaning is not enough. A lot more needs to be done. And the editorial is of the opinion that the presidency must look critically at the civil service, because the civil service is supposed to generate ideas and serve as the mainspring of policy for administration. And therefore, there is need for more reforms to make sure that the civil service is protected and insulated from corruption. Most importantly, it recommends that the Orosan's report that said that about 444 parastatals were too bogus and that they should be streamlined, should be revisited, so that we can have a small size and effective public service that will serve the administration.
All right, Bayo, thank you very much. Just before we go, at some point, one point to draw attention to, the way we handle our solid minerals in Nigeria. You know, there have been all kinds of reports about illegal exploration, illegal production, as well as illegal exportation.
Mining, yes.
Exportation of solid minerals. There's a photograph on page 4 of Daily Trust newspaper, and the photograph is from the EFCC, and it shows a person, a suspect who was arrested by the EFCC operatives. He was aboard an Emirates flight to Dubai. This was in Lagos, and he was allegedly found with 19 wraps of gold in his luggage. You can see 19 wraps of gold. The weight is not exactly stated, but you can be sure that this is raw gold, and once it is processed...
a lot of fortune.
This entire situation, because I was privileged to have covered mining and even attended a trade fair on mining in Jos in 2009. Now, what I discovered is that it is because of the yawning gap created by the government's inability to venture deeply into the mining industry that led to individuals who now saw that as a way out. And you cannot blame them per se, because that's why on one occasion when I had the minister, he was saying that it is also good to co-opt those individuals who are involved in private mining. You may call it illegal mining, but this is a natural resource that has been there over the years. And there's no attempt then by government.
But this is illegal exportation.
Well,
this is exportation.
Because what is the source of the gold that is there?
No. It's illegal exportation.
One is the precursor of the other. Missing, yes. It's the illegal mining that also is leading to the illegal exportation. Yes.
Exactly. Illegality begets illegality.
No. Carry on. I mean, there are rules for dealing with minerals, production and export of minerals.
Yes.
There are rules, and of course, why would the EFCC arrest him if there were no rules?
Those private miners who are licensed to operate, how
Yes.
do they sell their products?
Yes, you have to go through the proper channels, through the proper markets. If he had his papers, nobody will stop him. All right, that's of course bio and Kirian. Yes, illegal exploitation of precious metals. We'll take a short break. Of course, bio, we'll expect him to join us tomorrow again.
Thank you very much.
A new edition of TV Guide is out with special focus on the role of the media in election coverage. Exclusive on the National Broadcasting Commission, its mandate as the sole regulator of Nigerian media. Dr. Thomas Dabat Ben and Ishak Modibo Kawu now. This edition also features the king of stand-up comedy in Nigeria, Ali Baba. NTA standards to be ready for election transmission after decades of abandonment. Find out from the DG transactional elections in our political space. An evil wind that blows no good. DG, National Orientation Agency Corporate. TV Guide, your indispensable companion, x-rays the impact of social media on electioneering process as electorates present their expectations from incoming government. Meet some TV professionals behind the screen and other inspiring stories in sports, entertainment, and lots more. Grab a copy at the vendor near you or NTA stations nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
So, how do I look, guys?
Aha! I see what's wrong.
What?
The wall doesn't match your elegance.
Then we must do something about it right away.
At Royal Ceramics, we offer you a wide range of beautiful wall and floor tiles designed specially to fit your lifestyle.
So, what do you guys think?
Thank goodness we changed to Royal Ceramic tiles.
I agree.
Like mother, like daughter.
Royal Ceramics, finish in style.
And you're still watching Good Morning Nigeria, and we thank you for staying with us up to this moment. And we are discussing the shape and character of the 9th National Assembly. For a background into our discussion, here is Oyemi Ajayi with this report.
February 23, 2019 is no ordinary day. It was the day when Nigerians finally went to the polls to choose their next set of leaders for the presidency and National Assembly. While President Muhammadu Buhari got another term in office, the results for the National Assembly was a case of different strokes for different folks. As others got re-elected, many others did not succeed in their bid to remain in the red or green chambers. With some results still pending, figures show that 62 senators and 151 House of Representatives failed to secure their return to the chambers. This is a reduction from the 2015 general elections, where 79 senators lost their seats. This means that in the Senate, All Progressives Congress (APC) has 60 senators elect, while People's Democratic Party (PDP) has 35, aside one seat won by the Young People's Party, giving the APC a majority in the red chamber. In the House of Representatives, the APC got over 200 seats, while the PDP got over 100. Following these developments, analysts are theorizing on what shape and character the 9th National Assembly will take, since some big names will be missing while a new set will make their debut. Questions then arise as to what kind of leadership the 9th National Assembly might throw up and how the legislature will respond to the yearnings of Nigerians who want better living conditions. Will there be an improved working relationship between the National Assembly and other arms of government? What happens to the backlog of legislative business that will be carried over, and how long will it take for the newly elected legislators to settle in for their duties? These are some questions that guests on Good Morning Nigeria will be discussing in a moment.
All right, Toyo Emi Ajayi, thank you very much. But of course, the position in terms of, Kieran, the membership of the Ninth Assembly on account of the elections that were conducted on the 23rd. The membership isn't fully settled yet.
Yes.
We understand APC has 64, PDP 41, and YPP has 1. But I'm sure that before the inauguration or by the inauguration of the Ninth Assembly, the full membership will have been stated.
Yeah, because some of them are still inconclusive.
Absolutely, absolutely. But that's, of course, the foundation for our discussion this morning. Let's introduce our guests. I would like to welcome Honorable Mohammed Monguno. He's a re-elected member of the House of Representatives. Congratulations. He represents Monguno, Unganzai, and Marte constituency. That's in Borno State.
Yes.
Congratulations on your re-election.
Thank you very much.
Okay. And we also have with us here, there's an NGO. He represents an NGO that, of course, monitors the occurrences in the National Assembly. Okay, Ipia, Executive Director, Other People in Nigeria. Okay, pleasure to have you again.
Thank you. Good morning.
And joining us from Makurdi is Senator-elect and Chairman of the House Business and Rules Committee, Honorable Okajev. Jeff, good morning and welcome to the program.
Yeah, good morning. But let me make a quick correction. I'm the chairman of the FCT. I was chairman of Rules and Business for 3.5 years. I'm presently the chairman of the FCT of the House of Representatives.
And we have a professor of political science, and of course a regular face on Good Morning Nigeria is no other than Professor Kabir Matu. Professor Matu, good morning and welcome.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Kirian.
All right, gentlemen, once again, it's a pleasure to have you on the program. But just before we start, as it were, disaggregating the numbers and trying to make sense of how the complexion of the Ninth Assembly would look like, let's get the views of those who were participants in the process, beginning with Honorable Monguno. How easy was it for you in getting re-elected? And what's your impression of the general conduct of the National Assembly elections?
Well, for information, this is going to be my 5th time of coming to the House of Representatives. Generally, contestations of elections for particular offices is not a Tea Party affair. Definitely the contest is going to be tough, and as usual it's tough, but I was able to make it by the grace of God and the support of my constituents. Generally, the elections were free and fair, credible. There is level playing field for all, for each and everybody to participate. And then at the end of the day, the democratic will of the people was upheld.
5th time. Congratulations one more time. But that is beginning to look like a traditional title.
This is the grace of God and then the support of my constituents.
Okay. All right. Let's go over to Honorable Okajev in Makurdi, our network center. Of course, you are in the House. We've had the opportunity of having you on Good Morning Nigeria here in Abuja. But of course, you are moving upstairs now. What's your general appreciation, or rather appraisal, of the conduct of the National Assembly polls?
Well, thank you. I was so involved with my election that I may not be in a good position to assess correctly what happened elsewhere. But in Benue, the elections were generally very transparent, free and fair. And only that could have ensured that I moved from a federal constituency that comprised 1 local government to a senatorial district that is 7 local governments. So if it was not free, I don't think I would have made it against a sitting senator. So that is testimony to the fact that the elections in Benue State, at least, were generally free and fair. Even though I may not be too happy with the results elsewhere, but that is the essence of democracy. You may not necessarily like how the result turns out, especially depending on how the people vote. But that is that in Benue State. I'm trying to follow what happened elsewhere now that my elections are over, but again, I'm occupied with the governorship elections. So it is after this that I'll be in a better position to assess what happened across the country in order to come to an informed decision. I can only speak on what happened in Benue State. Benue State, I say once again that Benue State had a generally peaceful, free, transparent elections.
Okay. You had, sorry, Kieran, I was just wondering, I know you're going to pop a question. Honorable Kev, you had a mountain to climb, against the incumbent who is not just only a former governor, but is also a sitting sitting senator. How challenging was this for you?
Yes, this is somebody who has been consistently in government for 20 years running and with high degree of acceptability over time. I mean, democracy is about the people. It was time for the people to assess his style of leadership, and apparently they wanted him to rest and give a younger blood the opportunity to carry on. I think that is what happened, the summary of what happened in Benue State. So I now have the demand. I'm waiting to take the baton and expose myself to the people to see the kind of leadership or representation rather, that I will give. It was challenging. I never saw it, I never took it lightly at all, I must say. But if democracy is about the people, you present yourselves and leave the rest of the people, and they decided. So I'm today Senator-elect.
All right, Honorable Kev, congratulations. And of course, you've told us that you are now occupied by the governorship election, which is coming over the weekend. All right, thank you. Let's go to Kabir Matu, who happens to be a professor of political science. Professor Matu, we witnessed another round of National Assembly elections on the 23rd of February, and but the actual number of members of the 9th Assembly may not be conclusive at this point because of the number that we have, 64-41 for the Senate. We are not sure of the House of Representatives. But be that as it may, how would you assess the elections? And looking towards 9th Assembly, what are your expectations?
Well, thank you very much. I think the elections, as all other participants in this program did say, was free, fair, and credible. Above all, it was transparent because this was at least the testimony that most of the observer groups that came and witnessed the election came up with. So as far as being free, fair, and credible is concerned, I think that's a settled matter. And as for the major political parties in contestation, the result also is very clear by now. It's glaring. If you have 64 members out of 109, it means you have a comfortable, simple majority. And that's what I think the APC enjoys by having 64%, regardless of the fact that there are still a few seats, that are being contested in a rerun maybe that will come up on the 9th of March, according to INEC. So, but that, to me, is settled. Another area, of course, is in the House of Representatives, where, as it is today, over 200 members belonging to the also ruling All Progressive Congress clearly shows a majority in a house of 360 members. So all in all, I think the elections is almost concluded. As far as the federal elections are concerned, or the national elections are concerned, we wait for what happens on Saturday when the governorship elections will hold. And I want to say that the process was free, fair, like I did say, and also if I am to make some predictions of what I will expect, is that I will expect that the 9th National Assembly will be more mature, will be more focused than the current National Assembly. I've been a friend of the National Assembly in the last 20 years, and I have seen so many things happen from the time when at the slightest opportunity they will tell you that it's a nascent democracy and the process of learning. And I think by any standard, any person who is 20 years of age has attained the age of maturity and probably even graduating from the university. What I see happening in this assembly and in this Senate especially is most regrettable, because there seems to be a major disconnect between all the processes and procedures that we learned 16 years before 2015, and what we see. So I expect that the 9th National Assembly will be more focused, will be more issues driven, rather than the oligarchy, if I may put it, than the current legislature, presents itself as. So it's a good election. Of course, Honorable Jave, congratulations. Mongonu, congratulations for returning to the House of Representatives on one hand, and for getting the upper hand to go to Senate over a very dogged, politician in Benue State. But of course, that's what party politics is all about. Things change, and the views of people also continue to be altered, as far as a lot of permutations and development are concerned within the polity. So I will expect that the 9th National Assembly will be focused much more than the one that is in currency now, in the sense that the idea of continuous crisis with the executive arm of government for pecuniary reasons. Those reasons are pecuniary because if you move around all the major crises that we've had in the National Assembly over a long time, it has to do with one common denominator, and that is the struggle to access more, of the national resources, by the members of the legislature. I expect that we should mature to move away from this, to focus, because spending the last 4 years with the President Buhari administration and its focus on a reduction of expenditure, especially on areas that are frivolous and not necessary, which of course did not go down well with several members of the legislature, especially the leadership in the Senate and the leadership in the House of Representatives, incidentally, which were both initially at the starting point, with the same party with the president. And what Nigerians have clearly shown is that, as far as the Senate leadership is concerned, it was a mark, against the style of the leadership. And in the House of Representatives, there's Speaker Dogara, I understand, has won his election and is coming back to the House of Representatives, but incidentally is coming back to the House of Representatives as a floor member. If the new leadership will want, they could make him a chairman, or they will respect him as a former speaker. I expect the 9th National Assembly to be thorough, to be more focused, to put Nigeria first, and also understand the body language of the executive arm of government, so that they can collaborate and move the nation forward and stop the scramble for access and control of greater chunk of the national resources, simply because we desire to go back to our constituencies and then contest election in the next 4 years, either to retain our seat or to move to the next level.
All right, Professor Mato, thank you very much. We'll return to you later in the course of the conversation. Let's bring in Okay Ipia. Okay, of course, you had seen the emerging complexion of the 9th National Assembly. So far as we know, 64 for the APC, 41 for the PDP at the moment, YPP 1. And then, of course, we also know the numbers in the House of Reps. Simple majorities in both chambers, but not 2/3, not even 3/4. In your opinion, what does this portend?
Well, it portends a positive value, both for the country and for the ruling party. But before I expand on that, let me quickly speak to the character of the emerging 9th National Assembly. Like we already have seen, we have the elections have thrown up some giant killers who are coming to the National Assembly. Okejev is one of them. We saw in Kwara State what happened. A sitting Senate president, was defeated in the election. So we've seen a couple of giant killers, and that's quite, it speaks to the character of the, incoming National Assembly. From our own records, what we have been able to put together, we know that we'll have about 15 governors, including those who have been governors before now, a combination of about 15 governors coming into the Senate. That's going to weigh in on the character of the National Assembly. We have a drop in the number of females who are coming for now in the Senate. We had 8 of them, elected in the current National Assembly. We have had so far about 6 of them elected, so there is a drop with respect to female representation, and another very important point too is the number of new members who are coming to the National Assembly is still quite a huge chunk. In the Senate, I think we have about 40 new members, And then we also have those who have been members who are coming back, including those who have been governors, So these are some of the characters that define the incoming National Assembly. And so they will all come to play a role or two, in the process. Then coming back to your question, I think that it's a good thing we have this kind of simple majority. It should help in nation building and moving the country forward. But it depends on how, the ruling party and the executive arm of government, makes use of this value. This is not new. In the 8th Assembly, in the current Assembly, we had this simple, if not, almost 2/3 majority. But, you and I know that this has been the most fractious, in terms of executive-legislature relationship, this has been the most fractious. So there has been that value that should, be appropriated with respect to the majority status of the ruling party was lost or has been, substantially lost in the current National Assembly. So how do we address that? I think that it's not enough to chorus simple majority and be happy about it. I think the ruling party needs to be able to have an agenda. I think also, too, that the executive needs to be able to have a legislative agenda. We have seen that proactiveness on the part of the legislature, at least in the last 2 assemblies. We've had legislative agendas in the 7th and the current National Assembly. The executive, which drives governance, which implements policies, does not seem to have had, the sense to put together a legislative agenda with which to engage the legislature. And until we have that, we will not probably make the most of this majority status that we have. And this is about the time. I think it's too early to begin to, maybe not too early. Yeah, politicians must do their thing. They will jostle for offices, who becomes speaker, who becomes this and all of that. But I think for the executive, the more important role for now would be put his house in order. What are the programs, the next level programs? How do we engage the legislature to ensure that these next level programs, there is some sense of synergy, such that these programs can be implemented for the benefit of the greater good of Nigerians. Otherwise, if he doesn't do that and begins to do that now, in concert with the ruling party, we may not just be making any progress with respect to this simple majority status that we currently have.
Well, the simple majority, but you know that for the National Assembly, or for the ruling party to have its way when it comes to serious matters that require voting, it requires a 2/3 majority, and that's also what the APC should work on. And let me turn to you, Honorable Mongino. You have told us that this is you have just won your 5th term at the National Assembly and the House of Reps, to be precise. And considering the contributions of Pierre and, of course, from Professor Kabir Maltu there in Kaduna, you will agree that the 8th National Assembly had some kind of acrimonious situations in certain issues, especially how you constituted your leaders at that time, when some members decided to become a recalcitrant and, of course, went ahead to constitute themselves and headed the House at the National Assembly. And the result was really not something to write home about in terms of, real legislative responsibility of the National Assembly. So what are we expecting now that people like you with experience are returning to the National Assembly?
I think we had a very rancorous legislative, executive relationship in the 8th Assembly purely as a result of the disposition of the leadership of the National Assembly, both in the House of Representatives and in the Senate. And this is purely attributable to the way and manner they emerged as respective leaders of the two chambers. So in order to avoid such a scenario, I think there is the need, I will not say necessarily interference or full-fledged intervention by the party. But since the party has majority both in the Senate and in the House of Representatives, there is a need for guidance in the emergence of the leadership from the party. Guidance in the sense that there is a need for the party to come out with a zoning formula rather than leaving it free like that. To come out with a zoning formula to zone position A to zone A, position B to zone B, or position C to zone C, for clear guidance in the way and manner the leadership of the National Assembly will emerge rather than leaving it open before, so that at the end of the day, the leadership that emerge will be a replica of the wishes and aspirations of the membership of the majority party in the National Assembly, rather than leaving it open and then the opposition party will cash in on it and then allow a leadership that is not in tandem with the wishes and aspirations of the majority membership of the party to emerge. So at the end of the day, when a leadership emerges under such a scenario, definitely you should expect that the style of leadership will not be in consonance with the objectives of the party. So I think this time around, the party should guide the membership of the party in the way and manner the leadership of the party, of the National Assembly emerges, in order to insulate it from the rancorous and the acrimonious relationship that we had before, which has attendant effect on the legislative executive relationship at the end of the day.
All right, Honorable Monguno, thank you very much. Let's go over to Honorable Jeb in Makurdi. Well, Nigerians and indeed the lawmakers in particular will be looking to see what happens in June when the 9th National Assembly takes off. You've listened to Honorable Monguno here talk about what probably will be the ideal mechanism for picking your principal officers in the National Assembly. In your opinion, is that likely, that's to say the choice of national officers, likely to be the first indication of the character of the 9th National Assembly? And if so, what are the pitfalls to avoid?
Okay, thank you. So let me just say this, that prior to the inauguration of the National Assembly, not many people would have given, for instance, Saraki a chance to become the next Senate President. Maybe more certain in the House, but certain issues, certain circumstances threw up Saraki, we are now all aware. And my very good friend Muguno was talking about the role of the party. Let's not forget that even though we take, we're patterned our democracy after America, there's a difference, a slight difference or some difference. In America, once a Democratic Party or any party or the Republican Party wins the House of Representatives or the Senate, automatically all the chairmanship of that party, of that House, will go to the winning party. I mean, it's not shared. But here, it's shared. For instance, some of the juiciest committees, if you like, or some of the grade A committees are in the House, in the hands of the PDP, when the APC was the leading party then. That is when Dogara was in the APC. Most of how did that come about? It came about because most of those who stood by him, who ensured that he emerged, were, and so because of this, I won't be surprised if the maneuverings and all the politics that will throw up the leadership will still replay itself. And it's not going to be restricted to the APC that is the leading party, because if somebody believes, for instance, in the APC, that he can partner with the PDP and that will help him emerge as a leader of the House, as a Speaker of the House, even against the permutations of the party, he would do that. And so it's money yet on Creation Day. Nobody can sit here with all certainty and determine exactly how events will play out. Of course, the party will have a role. Of course, the presidency will have a role down here. But what I want to caution against, and what I'm afraid to say, is that the role of the presidency in the running of the National Assembly did not help matters. I mean, the presidency this time around should take the National Assembly as a partner in government, and not some people to be looked down upon. That is the impression that I had, being an active participant in the politics of the House of Representatives. It was very clear that the presidency was always looking at the House as looking down on the House, I should say. And so, going forward, if the president wants to have a partner in the National Assembly, what is to change tactics. No matter who is thrown up as a leader of the Senate, or who is thrown up as the leader of the House of Representatives, he should accept and work with them. Otherwise, the rancorous relationship that has been mentioned, that has prevailed in the current 8th Assembly, will continue if that is not checked.
All right, that's one issue Honorable Jeff actually raised, but I would like Kabir Mato to come in here as a political scientist. Now, he used a word that not many Nigerians will always like to hear when it comes to distributing positions at the National Assembly: juicy position. Now, I've only heard that in Nigerian political landscape. What is a juicy position? That is one question. Another is for you to perhaps explain to Nigerians what should be the methodology for having principal officers at the National Assembly, the international best practice that could give a National Assembly a good face with respect to those who will lead them. How is it done in other climes? And what should the 9th Assembly do to prevent what happened in 2015? Because it was almost shameful in 2015 when people of the same party, supposedly of the same ideology, were fighting to produce the headship of the National Assembly.
Thank you very much, Kira. Let me start with the idea of juicy committees or juicy position. Yes, as Honorable Joe rightly mentioned, in the American presidential system, the Assembly, the majority party takes all the chairmanship of the all the chairmanship positions of the various committees of the party. That's not precisely what happens here. What happens here is that these positions are normally shared between the major political parties, not necessarily two. When Alliance for Democracy used to be part of it, Action Congress of Nigeria used to be part of it. The 3-4 major political parties in the National Assembly were all given some slots of this chairmanship position. The decision, I think, by the National Assembly in Nigeria to want to carry all the political parties along is an internal contraption designed perhaps to ensure some form of solidarity and understanding, collective, management of the affairs of the National Assembly. Yes, you see positions. These are positions that were unnecessarily created. For instance, the Senate President or the Speaker of the House of Representatives, select who becomes the chairman of the Senate or House, Services Committee. That's a very juicy position because it's responsible, it's in charge of all, the expenditures that have to do with the running of the particular chamber. You have appropriation committee, you know what that means, the politics of padding, and so on and so forth, finance committee, and other, these are some of the committees. These are the top 3 committees that people see as juicy committees: defense, etc., etc. And I think this is purely born out of the very desire or the very nature of the Nigerian political elite. The intention is that I want to get there so I can maximize whatever material benefits that is coming to me. And I think we must really be careful about that. We must begin to evolve very serious means and ways to ensure that this idea of making some committees or seeing some committees as juicy and others as not juicy is counterproductive to the not only general manner in which the legislature conducts its affairs, but also is a negative, implication on our derived at war against corruption. This has to be properly understood. So the new leadership of the National Assembly, the leadership that will emerge, must take this into cognizance. And of course, it's a matter of attitudinal orientation on the part of the legislature itself to know that the primary responsibility of being a member is service to the people and not what you are going to acquire at the end of the day. That is one. Secondly, the issue of selection of leadership of the two chambers of the National Assembly. I was worried in 2015 when the president came up and said that he didn't care, and whoever emerged as the Senate president or the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Later on, I came to understand that the president acted in good faith based on the previous experiences that we saw, the meddlesome, the interference that we saw in the government of General Obasanjo, that we saw in the government of President Goodluck Jonathan, which brought up the first major upheaval in the House of Representatives leadership selection process, when President Jonathan and the PDP insisted that a particular lady must be elected as the speaker and the rest of the members saw that as unnecessary and therefore broke away. But what happened in 2015, in my view, was the extreme of, a scenario where the leadership will look the other side, or the executive arm of government and the political party itself will look the other way, and then leaving its own members, to grapple in the dark. I want to support the position of Honorable Mungono to the extent that it is a responsibility of the APC now that has majority in both the Senate and the House of Representatives to come up clearly and identify where they want the Speaker of the House to emerge from. That's which geopolitical zone. Which geopolitical zones they also want the Senate President to emerge from. Now, this is, again, another contraption. It's not necessarily an ingredient of democracy as you find in the book or in the Constitution. It is a convenience that is normally adopted in order to be able to address the peculiarities of the entire political system. So if you want to have a Senate President, of course you cannot have a Senate President from the Northwest. You cannot have a Speaker of the House from the Northwest because the President is from here. Okay? So it is now left for the party leadership to make sure that devoid of personal sentiments, zone these things to other regions of Nigeria where they have membership. I mean, God in his infinite mercy has so made it that, the senators and members of House of Representatives are coming virtually from all the 6 geopolitical zones in this country. So it is left for the party to dispassionately sit and decide where they want to have a Senate President from, where the Deputy Senate President will come from, where the Speaker of the House will come, and where the Deputy Speaker of the House will come from. In other claims, like you did ask Kirian, in the American Congress, for instance, it is an established convention that immediately a political party wins majority in the House of Representatives, the majority leader of that political party assumes the position of the speakership. That's not what we practice here. And unless, of course, if we want to make it a convention, then it becomes part of it. Yes, people say it's a learning process. If we want to adopt it as such, then it is also the responsibility of the party leadership to go back and see the possibilities of starting it and then talking to its members to make sure that every member to a long line. That, in fact, will not create these unnecessary breakages and damages that eventually will lead one recalcitrant member, one recalcitrant senator or the other cutting alliance with members of the opposition party in order to create the leadership of the... And that's precisely the disaster that the National Assembly found itself in. And whether anybody likes it or not, where I disagree with Honorable Jay on the issue of executive-legislative relationship is the assumption that the president or the presidency sees the House of Representatives or National Assembly as, as a weaker or as not an institution to be respected. I think that's not really the problem. In my own assessment as an outsider, I see the situation basically as the inability of the honorable members and distinguished senators to tolerate the new sheriff in the House and his own ways and manners that he desired to move the affairs of the nation. What the National Assembly perhaps wanted was a continuation of what happened in 1999 up to 2015. If that was obtained, then of course we will comfortably say that we are not making any progress. So what is constant in life is change. And we must be able, the National Assembly itself must adapt itself to the reality that things cannot continue to exist in a manner that it has always. If we do that, then, and especially, and we're not getting things done the right way, then we'll continue to sink lower. And I think that's basically the problem, and that's the prayer and the call that most of us Nigerians will be making to the new National Assembly to look at the possibilities of changing their ways. Okay, it's very difficult. Change is so difficult. People, will always resist moving from a lower position to a higher position because of what the Englishman will simply call fear of the unknown. But the fact...
Hey. All right, Professor Amato, thank you very much. Again, we'll return to you. Just before I ask Pierre to give us his own perspective on what might happen with regard to the emergence of the leadership of the National Assembly, I think, Kirian, it's useful to correct the impression. It is not only in Nigeria that you have so-called juicy committees. In the U.S., for instance, you have powerful committees, as they are referred to. Foreign relations is a very powerful committee. Defense is a powerful committee. Intelligence, these are powerful committees. But,
I think you use something different now. It's a powerful position. Because
powerful
of
committees.
Exactly, committee. Yes. Because of the position of such position. For instance, you mentioned intelligence. Intelligence is key to governance. Yeah. If there's no president in this world that would not like intelligence, because of course it will have to assist you in ensuring security. But this one is juicy. People are concerned about what we're going to, material things we're going to make out of it. That's our own...
I think it would be insulting, to our lawmakers to assume that, they crave those positions because of the potential material gain. That would be against the code of conduct.
But that's what we're seeing over the years.
It might be. I think we should grant them that respect. Elsewhere in the U.S., for instance, as we said, they are powerful. And you can never tell. There are interests. There are military, the entire military-industrial complex. It's all linked to defense.
But the language...
Anyway, Kyria, you and I are the moderators of this conversation. Let's bring in Pierre now. Okay. Again, looking at the character and complexion of the leadership of the Ninth Assembly, what are the likely factors that could play out? Haven't heard what the other guests have said. But in particular, I would like you to also have recourse to our experience in the past 20 years. Under Obasanjo, for instance, taking off in 1999, the major trigger for the fractious relationship he had with the National Assembly had to do with, attempts to impose leadership on the Senate, and then they played that up until the time there was an attempt to even impeach him in 2002. And we also saw what played out, for instance, during the time of Goodluck Jonathan. A failure to get somebody from the Southwest to become Speaker now became a liability for him, as the Southwest constantly nagged him for not, looking in the direction of the Southwest. And we have seen, of course, what we are dealing with in the 8th National Assembly. In your opinion, and as being a close observer of the National Assembly, what is likely to play out, and what should be the factors in consideration?
Well, what I think, and like I said in my opening remark, is the ruling party should be much more concerned about having an agenda of engaging with the legislature. For me, if the interests and the issues at stake is about service to the country, it's about making Nigeria work and taking Nigeria to the next level, I think the party should show its hands less about who emerges as leaders, as presiding officers of the National Assembly. Otherwise, history would repeat itself. You have, given a rundown of, our experience in the last 20 years, where the party and the presidency tried to impose leadership, and you saw the pushback and all of that, and how it affected governance and all of that. I also said in the current assembly, the APC didn't learn its lesson. They tried to do that. They even went as far as trying to micromanage that these are the individuals that we want. And you saw the rebellion, and the pushback was quite resounding. So the party should be more interested in, okay, yes, we'll let you people have some free hands. We will not be completely disinterested, but we will let you people have some free hand. Whoever emerges as your leaders. Don't forget, the institution is also growing. Members of the National Assembly are also beginning to assert their independence, and that's one factor that we must not, underplay. People want to be able to elect the leadership that they want. They want to be able to say, look, these are the kind of presiding officers that we want. Don't tell us who should be our leaders. And that is playing out again and again. And there is nothing wrong if, individuals think that they can successfully challenge the directives or the instructions of the party and make, and assume positions of leadership. It is all politics. We saw a very good example is what happened in 2015, the emergence of the Senate President and Deputy Senate President. We are seeing that there's been some bipartisan, working relationship in the leadership. We have the Senate President, the ruling party, the Deputy Senate President, the opposition party. Politicians will do anything to get what they want. But if the eventuality becomes what it is, what do you do as a political party? You have to design a way of engaging with the legislature. Otherwise, if you want to keep maintaining that, pole position, say we didn't want you there. And so I agree with Jeff, who submitted earlier on that. The presidency too must also see the National Assembly less as, an institution of opposition. It doesn't matter who the leaders are; they are Nigerians. And I think for the sake of nation building and for getting everybody along, it's fine to have these committees spread. It's fine to have the leadership spread. If they can make it, if they have the numbers to make it, why not? They do not have to thought. They have simple majority. And you cannot wish away, the numbers that the opposition party have. So if they want to put these numbers to use and be able to try their hand on the leadership, allow them. Because if you push too much, you will find a situation where the seed of discord between the National Assembly and the presidency would be sown again very clearly during the process of the emergence of the leadership of the National Assembly. So the party should be, I repeat, be much more concerned about putting its together, the party and the presidency, a legislative agenda. How do we engage with the National Assembly? We'll be interested in who becomes Senate President, Deputy Senate President, who becomes Speaker and Deputy Speaker of the, PDP people are Nigerians, YPP people are Nigerians, APC people are all Nigerians. Okay, they have emerged. So how do we move this country forward? These are our plans, these are our programs. I think that, for me, is the more important point. So the factors that will play out, coming to your question, is, the numbers that we have, and they are not, they do not give that to third majority, to the ruling party, to be able to do as it would please with respect to the emergence of the leadership. And they should be conscious of that fact, and allow members of the National Assembly significantly to determine whom they want as leaders, as Speaker, as Deputy Speaker, as President of the Senate and Deputy President of the Senate.
All right, thank you. On the issue for conversation this morning. But we are going further because we still have more time to do that. You are watching Good Morning Nigeria, and we'll take a short break now. When we come back, we'll move to other perspectives of this conversation. Stay with us.
If you hear a bomb explosion or gunshots of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words: run, hide, report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
A new edition of TV Guide is out with special focus on the role of the media in election coverage. Exclusive on the National Broadcasting Commission, its mandate as the sole regulator of Nigerian media. Dr. Toba Daba Ben and Ishak Modibo Kawu. Now, this edition also features the king of stand-up comedy in Nigeria, Ali Baba. NTA standards to be ready for election transmission after decades of abandonment. Find out from the DG transactional elections in our political space. An evil wind that blows no good. DG, National Orientation Agency caution. TV Guide, your indispensable companion, x-rays the impact of social media on electioneering process as electorates present their expectations from incoming government. Meet some TV professionals behind the screen and other inspiring stories in sports, entertainment, and lots more. Grab a copy at the vendor near you or NTA stations nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
All right, welcome back to the program. Now it's now time for us to, of course, look into the tweets that have come in this morning. Nigerians are beginning to respond to our topic this morning, and Kingsley would like to start.
That's right, we have a number of them. DW, that's the Twitter handle here, says, I think most of the, most of the opposition guys going, there will be smooth passage of bills and budget this time around. So we have new faces in the chambers also, but my concern is that the chambers just might be a rubber stamp of whatever the executive wants them to do.
All right, from Mike Anyako, for us to have a robust and vibrant 9th National Assembly, the members should independently elect their leaders. The leadership must also reflect the 6 geopolitical zones. The 9th National Assembly should pursue populist policies in exerting their independence. They should not be confrontational with the executive.
Festus Akimboyawa tweets, now, while Nigerians expect the National Assembly to perform their duties without fear, Nigerians also expect the National Assembly to be a humble one that will work smoothly with the executive for the good of our country. The obstructive attitude displayed by the 8th National Assembly mustn't be copied by the 9th.
All right, from Ibatibi Zekeri, unlike the cat and rat relationship between the leadership of the 8th National and the executive, I believe and hope that the 9th National Assembly would be different. Both arms should know that it is with mutual interest for national development that Nigeria can move forward for our common good.
Law Alpha C. The shape of the 9th Assembly will be predominantly fresh lawmakers who would adapt quickly to the rudiments of lawmaking. I'm optimistic that the 9th Assembly will form a synergy with the executive in order for sanity and mutual respect to reign.
Now, Akeju Olabaju, he says the 9th National Assembly is already defined based on the last election in which APC as a party has majority, hence is expected to produce Senate President and Speaker respectively. The emerging leadership should support good governance and promote rule of law.
Ibrahim Modu Adje tweets, now APC shouldn't repeat the mistake of the 8th Assembly by allowing the opposition to hold positions of principal officers. Now, as jostling for the position of principal officers of the 9th Assembly begins amongst the ranking members, those who share Mr. President and APC vision should be considered.
Mohammed Abdul Karim, he tweets, whether majority or minority, the 9th Assembly should work with the executive for the benefit of the masses that voted them into power. They shouldn't start competing with the executive in order to prove who has more powers. We don't need that.
And this is coming from Aminu J. It says, I expect a more people-oriented legislature in the 9th National Assembly. But we should not forget that state assemblies are yet to be autonomous, which is a disgraceful constitutional violation.
All right, from Ahmed Ibrahim Idris. He says, kudos to all National Assembly members for moving this great country forward. They should forget everything regarding differences. Let put Nigeria's interests first, work for the country, because with your cooperation, the country will move to a greater height. Again, congrats to Baba Monguno.
All right, Kyria, let's just go very quickly to Chris Shibion. It says, I felt much more delighted when President Buhari said his cabinet will be made up of persons of integrity and that the National Assembly will also be occupied by persons of integrity, people who care about the masses. Because looking at the 9th Assembly, 64 senators and 151 reps are not returning. That's a welcome development, he says.
Now, Hussein Ibaba, that's the last one we have this morning, but for now anyway. Hussein Ibaba, I wish the 9th Assembly would focus more on working for the poor people than to waste time on adjournment and other distracting issues.
All right. Well, let's return to our guest. Honorable Monguno, let me ask this question. Ultimately, does party membership really matter in the National Assembly? Because we hear lawmakers say, oh, once we get into the chambers, all that matters to us is the national interest. And that is one leg of it. Second leg is that we have seen, we are talking about numbers now, 64 for this, 41 for that, 1 for YPP. I'm sure in a matter of months, if past experience are anything to go by, you'll start seeing people crossing carpet. So you start working out the arithmetic. Does party membership really matter? And if it matters, why should it matter?
Well, before answering this question, I want to touch on the issue of the party's interference in zoning respective offices. I think this was purely informed by the need to take into cognizance the heterogeneous nature of Nigerian society and also give a sense of belonging to all the constituent parts of the Nigerian society. That is the reason why the party decides to zone a particular office to a particular zone in order to give a sense of belonging to each and every constituent part of the Nigerian nation state, not as purely to dictate who becomes the leadership of, first the leadership of the National Assembly, or give direction to who becomes the leadership of the National Assembly. But it's purely taking into cognizance the peculiarity of the Nigerian society. Then coming to your question of whether party membership matters in the National Assembly, definitely it matters, because we were elected based on particular manifestos. We are elected based on particular agendas that we promise Nigerians. For example, APC, we promised Nigerians that we are going to fight corruption, we are going to revive economy, and also we are going to give security to Nigerians, which is the primary purpose of governance. And all of us know that during the PDP era, corruption is the hallmark of governance, and that is what the APC came to correct. And also during the period when PDP was in government, almost in my state, almost 2/3 of the local governments is under Boko Haram occupation. That means the PDP government has not lived up to its primary responsibility of securing the lives and property of the people. And then our economy is almost in a state of comatose. But the APC came with these 3 cardinal objectives of reviving the economy, giving security, and fighting corruption. And that is the agenda that we sold to Nigerians, and it was based on this agenda that Nigerians elected us to come to the National Assembly. So party membership matters in the National Assembly because we have different agendas, different and distinct from the other parties. But when it comes to national issues concerning national interest, definitely the membership of the National Assembly will work in tandem with whatever that is in the interest of the party, or in the national interest, not along parochial party interests and what have you, but something that is in the overall national interest will guide the membership of the National Assembly. But party membership matters because we are elected based on different agenda. Then the issue of cross-carpeting of members from one particular party to another, especially during election period, is purely as a result of the fact that in Nigeria we looked at political parties as vehicle for acquisition of office or for election. And because of that, once we lose the primary election in party A, we cross-carpet to another political party for the purpose of getting election. So long as we continue to look political parties as merely vehicles for coming into office, then so long shall we continue to have this ugly scenario of members cross-carpeting from one party to the other.
And therefore, parties do not matter, really.
Parties matter.
I want to put that same question to Honorable Jeff in our Makudi Network Center, because he also has experience in the National Assembly. Now, this question that Kingsley put to Honorable Mongino is very apt because of what played out, the scenario that played out in 2015, especially in the Senate, where you had we have the Senate President from APC and Deputy Senate President from PDP. Does party membership really matter, or is it that national issues should be kept at abeyance when it comes to principal offices at the National Assembly? So the question really is, does party membership matter? Or if it matters, does it now override national interests as far as legislative function is concerned?
Well, thank you. In my opinion, one of the greatest threats to our evolution as democracy is a lack of internal democracy and poor party administration. Now, when that prevails, you continue to have issues with members of the party. The party is not, for instance, supposed to micromanage who as a leader of the National Assembly. Okay, I agree with Mungono and the others who spoke along that line that well, the party could guide the process, say this should go to this zone or that zone. But when you begin to nominate an individual, the others will rebel. Because you are beginning to have preferential people within the party. The way the party has been managed, parties have been managed. Yeah, I doubt whether anytime soon you will be having loyalty to the party, as it were. I'll start myself as an example. Until less than a year back, I was a member of the APC, and I knew that the people were ready to have me as their next senator. But within the party, block was put in my path to ensure that I was frustrated, and I left the party and crossed over to the PDP and won my election. Okay, so when you have a party managed in such a way as to frustrate, as to make others feel unwanted, the party will no longer have that leverage over the members, as it were. It's the same thing in the National Assembly. The party could call all members and say, okay, we prefer that the speakership or the Senate president should go to this zone, and leave it at that level. Not go to micromanage, pick one individual and ask all others to fall into line. Definitely there will be rebellion. For now, party matters only, should I say, in theory. As for the practicality of it, as long as the party is managed the way it's managed, and I'm speaking about all parties, not just any particular party. As long as it's managed the way, or the parties are managed the way I see them managed now, they will continue to have a slippery hold on the members in the National Assembly.
All right, Honorable Jeff, thank you very much. Let's go over to Professor Kabir Mato. Professor Mato, very briefly, I would like you to also respond to the question whether ultimately party membership matters if you are a member of the National Assembly. That's the first leg. Second leg, yes, it is important to enforce party discipline, part of party management. But is there some incipient crisis already that the ruling party, which has won so far 64 seats, has already suspended 2 of its senators-elect?
Very much. Let me say that, party discipline is necessary. The difference between presidential system of government and parliamentary system of government, one of the manners in which the legislature behaves, defines this momentum and differences. In a parliamentary system of government, a parliamentarian under a political party in parliament is bound by law to agree with the position of his party. This is not necessarily so under a presidential system, and that's the one that we have in this country today. But that does not in itself preclude the fact that having been elected into a chamber of the parliament through a vehicle or political party, the moment you get there, you begin to misbehave or think that you are independent. That is political indiscipline, and it should not be tolerated. But then again, appropriately, like Jeff did say, one of the major blunders that our political leaders often find themselves in is to begin to zero in on particular candidates. I think that's not very attractive. It's becoming irritating to a lot of members of the same political fold that once an individual is identified, then the idea of coercion comes in, and then members begin to, become recalcitrant and so on and so forth. So I would like a scenario where the presidency, the political party, and the president will have interest in where this thing goes to and try to carry out some internal party democracy from within these geopolitical zones to be able to determine who among those that may be interested is most suitable. I think the word should be who is more suitable than who we prefer to be a presiding officer in any of the chambers of the National Assembly. And I would not like to see that kind of disasters that happened in 2015, having an APC Senate President and a PDP, Deputy President of the Senate happen again. That must not be allowed to happen because, it's not about, look, the politics that we practice, winner takes all in this scenario. It has never happened. It happened this time, and I hope that they will. Let me talk to, the civil society, ideologue who is thinking, you don't need 75% of the membership of any chambers for you to be able to have your policies through. When House of Representatives votes, why does it necessarily require a two-thirds majority? We are not amending a constitution. We are not overriding any bill. Every bill is passed on the basis of simple majority. So a political party does not need 75% before it takes the entire leadership or the presiding officers of the two chambers of the National Assembly. That is one. So, number two, the question you ask about the crisis that seems to be erupting. Yes, again, this is a manifestation of, crass indiscipline on the part of some very senior members of the APC. I cannot see how you contest to go to Senate after having served 2 terms as a governor of your state, and then all of a sudden have some disagreement with the leadership of your party, and then another candidate emerges as a gubernatorial candidate of your party in your own state, and then you ride on the back of that political party to win a senatorial position, only for you to go back to your state and begin to campaign against the candidate of your political party. Again, that is an expression of crass political indiscipline, which must be punished. And I think we are not too liberal. People shouldn't mistake party discipline with, rascality. And I think that's what a lot of people seem to be thinking about. It is not possible for you. Look, civilization and political maturity are measured in terms of the capacity of individuals and groups to behave in a particular manner. You don't just get recalcitrant simply because you have the pleasure, you have the privilege, you understand, to disagree. There must be some common grounds and common rules that must be binding on all members of political organizations. And that's basically what's happening in all the civilized world, and we should not be an exception. So, as far as I'm concerned, yes, it's a crisis, but I hope it will be, addressed as soon as possible, and I hope also that, the APC will not be losing these 2 senators at the end of the day, and I hope they will understand and realize that they have committed fundamental blunders and come back to the fold and ask the leadership of the party for necessary, reconciliation so that they can move together. But certainly it's an expression of crass indiscipline that must not be accepted. And one of the problems that Nigeria has found itself in over a very long period of time is the absence of rule of law, the inability of the laws of the land to be implemented as they ought to be. Some people have lived, outside of the society. They see themselves as outlaws, and nobody has been able to bring them to order. And that is why we are this backward. That's why we are in these difficulties. And I want to believe that the focus of this government is to be able to enforce the rule of law, is to be able to enforce law, so that there is this idea of equality before the law. No matter your position in the society, you are top there, you are down there, as long as you infract, then you face the consequences.
All right, Professor Maltu, if time allows us, we'll return to you, perhaps for your concluding comments. Now, back to Abuja here. Pierre wants to respond to some of the some of the issues you raised. You said you want to respond to?
I just needed to clarify the reference to two-third majority. I wasn't implying that you needed two-third majority to pass bills or to override, positions. I am very much too aware of the processes and procedures of the House to be able to make that point. My reference to two-third is to caution the ruling party to say, look, yes, you have a simple majority, but it is not two-third for you to be able to ride roughshod over the opposition. You cannot discountenance the opposition, and that's why I refer to two-thirds. If they had two-thirds, yes, they can pretty well, get their way on every matter, on every issue that they seek to. But without that two-thirds, there must be a carry along. Otherwise, we won't make progress.
All right. Now your question. The Nigerians who elected the members of National Assembly really venerate their expectations. Now, what should be the direction of the Ninth Assembly with respect to the expectations of Nigerians who actually voted? Because they are there to work for the masses. They are there representing the masses of Nigerians. And of course, we'll expect them to, of course, reciprocate by facing the core functions of legislature.
The elections are over. The elections of the principal officers, presiding officers would come, it will be over. At that stage, we must get to nation building. We must get to governance. And that's why I keep saying that the party and the presidency must have a legislative agenda with which to engage, because Nigerians want to see food on their table. Nigerians want housing. They want to be able to pay their bills. They want to be able to send their children to school and pay hospital bills and all of that. That's what matters to Nigerians at the end of the day. How do we ensure that these things happen? That is where that synergy, without prejudice to who is what, in terms of political party, matters. And if we don't put that in place, we will not be making any progress. If we do not have a situation where both arms of government come to the table and say, this is the direction for our next level programs, it will be tragic. If you see this experience that we've had in this current assembly, where, the three cardinal programs of government, just three cardinal programs of government, we could not have synergy between both critical arms of government. And we must make this point. It is a federal government. It is not the legislature, it is not the executive, it is a federal government. Once the government is constituted, it is a government of President Muhammadu Buhari, who takes credit, who also takes otherwise if there is. So there is need for him and the party to show that mature leadership towards nation building, towards growing the economy and making sure that governance is delivered to the people. And one very critical way of doing this is the budgetary process. We must engage the budgetary process in a manner that it works. In 2016, other people were organized a colloquium on the budgetary process, very highly attended, critical actors, the Deputy Senate President, the Speaker of the House of Reps, they were all there, the Minister of Budget. We had a 12-point communique. These are the kind of issues we want to see happen. How do we advance the budgetary process such that when the budget is passed, what is the time lag for submission of the budget, for passing the budget consideration when it is passed? How do we ensure that, MDAs get to work and deliver on the budget? These are the issues that Nigerians want to see happen. So let us downplay the politics. Once the elections are over, once the presiding officers are elected, the principal officers constituted, governance. How do we ensure that whether you are PDP, you are YPP, you are APC, we are all Nigerians. We need to move this country forward. And this is our agenda. We sit together, we define how we want to work.
All right, okay, thanks. But getting the legislature to work, my question is going to Honorable Monguno, means that, of course, the members of the legislature should be familiar with processes and procedures. Here we are, For every assembly, you seem to have a high turnover. You have new members who have to learn the ropes, learn the difference, between proposing a motion and proposing a bill, and just getting to work. In your opinion, how can the learning process of the new members be speeded up so that there is no drag?
Well, I think first and foremost, we are having this large turnover of members because of peculiarities in our respective constituencies. Because most of these constituencies are not homogeneous in nature. They are heterogeneous in nature. And as such, there is this agreement that each local government or each community will do 1 term or 2 terms, and then subsequently, in that federal constituency, the office will shift to community A or community B, ditto to senatorial districts. I think this also has contributed to the large turnover of members in every election year. Well, then, with regard to the issue of how do the new members learn the nitty-gritty and rudiments of legislation when they are eventually sworn in, I think there is the Nigeria Institute of Legislative Studies normally organizes courses for both the new and then the incoming members on the rudiments and of lawmaking, on the rudiments of legislation. Sometimes they are even taken can I say, excursion, or just for them to be familiar with the environment of the National Assembly and what have you, just for them to settle and do their legislative work. So the Nigeria Institute of Legislative Studies goes a long way in appraising the new legislators about the rudiments of legislation by the time they come in.
All right. If Honorable Jeb has any addition to make to this with regard to accelerating the learning process of many new members you would have in the House and the Senate.
And of course, the budget cycle to
That's
return,
right.
to
January
what
to
it
December.
should be, not passing budget when the year is almost over.
Yeah, Honorable Jeb?
Yeah, so in addition to what Honorable Mongono has said, I think there's that issue of personal commitment. I'm sorry to say that some may come second time or third time and still not be, conversant with the rudiments of lawmaking, because if you decide to, I'm sorry, you may not be able to acquire the relevant experiences of the processes and procedures, no matter how long you stay there. But somebody that is going there with, determination to serve the nation and his people, within a few weeks, you should be able to get yourself conversant, because as Mogone has said, they are people should go there with the determination to serve their communities and to serve the nation. If you do that, within 4 years, you can make your mark, and if the exigencies of are such that you have to leave after 1 tenure, where you live, but you would have made your mark.
All right, thank you very much, Honorable. We are back here in the studio, and we have some more tweets coming in from Nigerians who are making their own contributions to the topic. Stephen is here. He says the APC should not allow PDP to hijack the leadership of National Assembly this time around. Please, Nigeria needs to move forward, please.
Festus Akimboyewa, Nigerians expect the 9th National Assembly to focus on the many challenges that are facing our country, especially unemployment, corruption, and crime. Nigerians also expect the 9th Assembly to take prompt passage of our budget seriously.
All right, from Usman Banikantu, he says obviously the 9th National Assembly has been defined as the two chambers. What is paramount for the APC is to act wisely and maturely by zoning the principal offices appropriately. The likes of Senators Omo Agege, Abulaye Demu, Danjuma Guje, Ndume, and Lawal may be considered.
Mike Anyakwo tweets. Now, I want to ask Honorable Monguno and Honorable Jeff this question. Are there any sanctions for absenteeism in the National Assembly? Because absenteeism is very worrisome in the National Assembly.
Well, Alex, lawmaking is an integral part of the democratic process, and as such should be taken with all sense of seriousness by lawmakers. Most times what we see in Nigeria is reconceived ideas to go after personal gains, thereby relegating the main job to the background.
And finally, let's take this from Yusuf Lawal. It says, I'm of the opinion that the party, as the mother of all elected members of the National Assembly, should be allowed to nominate where principal officers should come from.
All right, at this point, we'll be calling it a day on this very edition of Good Morning Nigeria. We thank you for being part of it. And right now, we'd like to appreciate all our guests who did justice to our topic. Honorable Mohammed Tahil Monguno, we thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
And was Professor Kabir Mato, who reached us all the way from Kaduna. It's been a pleasure talking to you this morning on Good Morning Nigeria. Thank you indeed. And Oke Epia, Executive Director of Other Paper Nigeria, it's been wonderful sharing your thoughts with us on the program. And from Medigrid Network Center, we had